Alas, ta terandane tane quadjipa tane chutsundane tane titsut ta momboji de mando ta inayang nga so temjir gum chomba zamga tane ta chumjir dibaz tane tangbo nge kacha dibaz da sha tane ndana gishi lana thawaga to lojong don tsugetna ta tega tare ta longs tare piayen.
It is auspicious to be here in the Kagyu Center, and in this short period of time, there's not much of time to go into detail, but some formal introduction as auspicious interdependent, and eventually there will be a little transmission on the 8th aspect of mind training from the Geshe Langritamba.
Tadirondane chu ta chuchutser gonandra chumjin jogde tene zo ngone to ta ji nangchu ga nyangdon ta nyamlen shiaur korte tesere ka sandana to chutsok to lama namgo ta tinja ga kacha dipaz to labna songo Tena to Tangi Hamasamna and the Gamboa to Teni Lamcho Renshin Choma, Tandi Dinanga Tsungare Marlavsam. Tayana Jima, they are Titsuk to this Resamanda, Tena Tanga Rangi, Semna Kang Janjanda, Tani Kachachari, Tari Chinambala Lab.
Previously, he was requested to talk about or teach on the essence of the practice of Buddhism. And he had in his mind to explain a little bit about the jewel ornament of liberation, which is the main teaching of Kagyu by Gambopa. And for that also, it's a little bit of a short of time. And then he decided that he will speak about mind training as it comes from his mind. And he will be talking about that today.
Tene ngazong terang dana tene manchewa tene boba yansare tene America mayang tare mambo yosare tene tangain na tang tangbo thoma chuchong de gonare chenamba go tene netser netso jimmo ko me te jipko chargi me gilon yabo me inayang tene partana changma tene ji nangchula tapa yabo yongke dana tene ji bajala ta pansim to yabo yosare tene ji che namba go jindang go tene chawa dang shopa dan de so par ta yongdi tene ji ngone ge ji sachan dane inayang ji nangchu go ta ji nyamlen de mapjrena 다 좋은도 되는 것도 더 관계 바고 라마 콩나 바고 또 같은 거 되는 진던 거 출라 냠는 여보 치료 지레 삼징아랑라 대 이치요
Rinpoche doesn't have much insight into the Dharma Center and activities here, and it looks like today the majority of the crowd here are Tibetans, and there are some non-Tibetans here too. So looks like by looking from it and by observing and by seeing the Kagyu Lamas here and the center and the members, he has this feeling, even though he does not know much about it in detail, but he has this feeling that due to the teachings and guidance of the Lamas here and practices that are done and taught here, has benefited the people, and he gets this strong impression that people have a good intention and good motivation and trying and learning how to apply his teachings into the practice.
tene ngaso dare chuchu innayo tene ji nyangmadang sarkya laso ba chuchu mombo yore innayo ta chu nyamlen go guni na tela to chabr jang yoge on mare tena tene sachan tene ngarang lam thongsir de janta pansin na tene chardang menke tene ke yang the hkir yang bo sim ya chimbur go ne tene lama namba yanna kong namba pansin de ji yang tyin thombo thunjur pe yabo yang ke dana tene ji ngasu dar loma namba yanna yang dar perna garji ke chuzo yanna da nyama ke chuzo yanna da 참아 판선다는 데니 로종 취기다는 추천 연계 단 내가 도난 취기인데 오늘 그 달에 배 여보래
Yesterday when he was in Geshe Center, which is the Gelugpa, and today he is here in Kagyu. It is not the difference of a Kagyu or and Gelug, but it is the importance of practicing the Dharma that he gets this impression by looking at and by observing and by sensing that it is the essence of bringing the Dharma teachings, no matter what tradition it may be, and practicing and teaching in harmony, and he sees all the teachers working together in a great harmony with the right intention to benefit, whether you are Kagyu, Gelu, Nyingma, or whatever, but it is the essence of the Dharma that is important, and which he really sees this thing, and he's very appreciative of that.
Tani ngachu chumtha susogo lama tani sidang siyin na yang chabar yo mare. Re dong ngachu tani chuba ta chu nyamsi lengkhen yindi ngibar do tani lama ting go yo re. Karti lama mafti ni rangkhar ka tani ji chu ga pedim de chola rangkhar ka pesta zo ni na ta chu nangdon de dis go re da yin na yang cha changba da na. teni phusum sobazu go thapko yo mare karesena perna ngacho zambo lang lobjong chera lobjong chede yang lobja chongwa dang lobja rongwa dang lobja chimbo irin ba jenda yaran ro yare re dang lobja suso na na gerging ge teni lobma chola re jenda na lobcha che gore karti gerging ge lobcha ma chena tene shichip ko nga chog lobma chog lobdip dela perta zone na tene korang chu to ta lobcha chamar jongyo na to lobja lobjung ge ce cha chamar lepta ba gasa kana yang sharshog na yo mare noshog na yo mare.
The difference in the tradition and the teachers is not important, but the teaching from a Lama, a spiritual teacher, is very important to those who wish to really practice and advance in the path of the Dharma. One may get the impression that studying from books may be sufficient, but it is not completely sufficient. You may learn something from the books and the texts, but without the instruction and guidance from a spiritual teacher who are qualified, real advancing into the path will not happen. Similar to the education, it's not different. You can read the text and may understand a little bit from it, but the complete and thorough understanding and knowing about what it is in it can be only when you are taught and instructed by a qualified teacher. So this is applicable in every aspect of the Dharma practice, because the importance of a teacher to guide you step by step, and system by system, no matter what tradition or lineage you may be, but the need of a qualified teacher is very important, and it is not only in the Eastern tradition, it is also in the Western education system. You need teachers, so this is very important to understand.
Matsu Jiktenbag Lopchong Chea in Natinja Gigantingo Yore. That diligent Nomba Sanji Bag to Chulu, De Castle Derangan, de Jiktenbag, Ta Lopcha, Sony Lopchong Chia, Nandun de Dom Derna, Tangatsu, Nomba Sanji Bag Chu, Nandun de Pe, Zapot and Jachimbo Son Yore. That day in the Inchi Tambone, Matsu Ta Give Shenyan. Teni lama tan de cho chi nyam nyu yon da tene tusum gunsum che myongkenga ndanjaga lama yabu zida tene tangbo dare tengi de ngatsu dare chuba sidang sayina tene chi de muriki khabar dana yarkab ke khabar yo mare chunde nyamsil landi chu de yana ji dar mongba ga tapa mayin ba go tene chunde nyamsil len shi go re chunde nyamsil len shi go di tangbo dare tuba de garchen bore.
Any knowledge, whether be it secular, modern, Western knowledge, or profound philosophical and the knowledge that are in the inner development of the Dharma. Without a teacher, without a proper instructor, one will not thoroughly understand it. And particularly in the case of like a profound inner training and understanding through the Dharma, one really has to go through a systematic and a gradual application of studying about the Dharma, its philosophy, its meaning, then reflecting and contemplating, and then through practicing and meditating. In this way, one will really have the benefit. And to learn and to get a proper guidance, you also need a teacher or a lama or a great scholars who have also, all the trainings through having studied and reflected and then having practice and experiences. And with the combination of these need and inspiration and then qualified teachers, one can really have the benefit. It is not just approaching it with faith and belief or mostly like through blind faith, but it is through understanding and reflecting them one can really then profoundly benefit the Dharma practices.
Da nga tsu poji nangtan nga chulungde ndor srade na yungzha sam tuba dang tu sam gum ta tenra sam ga nang da ga yore ta tendi tangbo de tene ta tuba de hajang garchewa ten lama ngdang ga yenchi minchi me chuchu mambo shi je da nga zong boba ga ina ya jindang ga tene lama nam ga chuchu songdi de chuchu de yabo shi ga go je ndo pe manra garchen bore ndo.
One has to understand these three aspects of the approach to Dharma very importantly. The first one is having sufficient studying or hearing the teachings from teachers who have transmissions and the knowledge about what to teach. And that is called like really spending time and putting effort into learning the Dharma correctly.
다 라마 게이션인 때네 담비 추데 마르 투차르데 아니양의 런거 선라 상로당네 때네 삼숑 그 시럽 다 삼바디 가르침보레 네 가상데란데 아메리카가 사차 몽보니 때네 티 롭자 침보 길금 몽보 저건도 티 롭자 길금 대초이나 당보 코랑소나 나추가 투바요 그만도 투맘녀레 코랑소 때네 다마 곰바요 그만도 옛날에 티 바르가 삼바디 코랑소 요건도 pecha mambo lotane ji shimjig shya don ta samlo mambo tantane yaramara mambo zogndo te ina koron tsu te ta ngarang ga ta tang ina tane tambo thuba mand thama gomba mand par sam ga ti samba ti ka ta tene nga chung po jin nang tang ga ji chu mambo ji la ji pe na sang ga ko nde so ina garete se ndo wa ji tak chu taknang ga chun do so ina ta parchiri te njige yo sa mare se yo re 야 지금 대치운도 소연한테 코랑소 라마소 파르치 쌈정아인사 레서거래 단 자동 먼저 세는데 단 된자이나 문에 지금 벤 살본을 렌도 어디 코랑데라요 베나 다 람고 럼바지요라 디 람고 럼바든 로마시네 zonte 되네 추디 코랑 그게라 판밤 요바마즈 메바마즈 되네 노파 야침보즈 지요래
So being instructed from qualified teachers who have sufficient transmission are very important. Now, through Ken Rinpoche's experience of having visited many universities and educational centers here in the country, and having encountered and met with many learned scholars or professors, especially in discussion with the Buddhist philosophy and practices, he realized that many of them does not have sufficient instructions and the teachings that they have received from qualified teachers. Neither they have any experience or realization through meditation or practice. But many of them apparently seems to have some knowledge through having read books or did some researches and having some contemplation or reflection on that. And through that, you can see that there is, of course, a lot of information and ideas about it, but true understanding are not there. Rather, there seems to have more misunderstanding on the practices and the Dharma, particularly when it comes down to like Vajrayana practice or Tantras, such as on the treasure teachings in the Tantric tradition. You have a treasure teachings and many other aspects of the teachings, like pure perceptions that you have to develop. So on these issues, they rather seems to have more misconception rather than a true understanding and aspiration, because it's a lack of having not sufficiently heard and received teachings from authentic source and nor having any proper practice on by meditating on them.
당아주 네 보지그 나왔던 러지나 더니 당보 봐 베나 지름보치가 송요래 당보 예치를 도바 마운드 사바르도 종lik 탐치 담가 셔지 다 타만 냠승 건도 냠슬랑 건경 담바지 비체도 홍 다 당보 투밥자 더니 바르도 더니 냠슬랑 더니 타마이나 다 종lik 샤데 도쇼 종lik 있나자 더니 흥학의 쇼크 종lik 있나자 강당 강이나 참마다 다 종lik 능돈소 탐쳤도 그 남극 거 잔도 샤네 다 남극 참마다 남극 거네 근데 지금 개발 시작선으로 있나 참마다 란직 뇽모와다나 대신에 란직 똑방 안 봐서 탐쳤도 저르시 지그 다 진이었다 또 연기도 송어래.
According to the Jerem Buchans, most important thing is first to have a sufficient study and reflection on it, and then applying them into practice. Then eventually it comes to really receiving the pith instructions, whether be it in the Sutra tradition or a Tantra tradition. It is the pith instruction that you get from your own teacher that helps you to transform your unknowing state of mind, such as ignorance, into understanding and realization. And also it is the pith instruction that helps to transform one's negative emotions or afflictions into like a virtue, like.
토바도 삼바리 때네 곰바 다 곰바도 페 가르침버리 가르팅아서 때 종르그 익차근 원이 있나 다 추근 난도인데 여보서 시레다네요 티스타버 진더 랑가 냠스마랑 곰마점나 때니 다 추근 난도인데 랑기 직기 베나 뇽몬반도 쳤다 제당 대진도는 다 처럽 토마메 바가 박창한 바 몸보시기 요래 대초 탐쳤던 마라 땅 고는 바가 잠했던 조건이나 땅 이버다 연로무 바르다 곰접 거래 가르테 곰을 접지이나 다 추응 아주 질라다 판바 토고네나 빽가 가보요래.
Having knowledge of the Dharma is very important, but it is eventually the practice, through the practice of meditation, that really brings the ultimate benefit. In any systematic teachings and trainings, you really have to go through the process, through the practice of meditation, how to overcome by applying the antidote and remedy that are there as a root of suffering, such as desire, anger, hate, and all the habitual tendencies that are there. Like, so to overcome and to be thoroughly purified of all this negativity, such as, or obstacles such as the afflictions that are in the mind in the form of anger or desire, and the habitual tendencies are through only meditation. And the meditation is the ultimate key to uproot all these defilements.
Tani ngazu masay na ya tani matse thong thong ta maschik matse te lo parchir ta ya yarmat kinin ya yarman dana pe che rangbo se yora ta te ma to ngazu chi parchewa to ta mo lor ngap chi tikchi ta denchi yachen ne to ta jikten paror don ror gore ta jikten paror don ror go na tani ngazu mo mombo jikdon tani sarji ge chuda yam cha lama ge shen de yam cha re da rang tambi chun de nyamsil ne ma to yi tani ta chu ga sa ne jo tani gansak ge jete thamar da tere jo ta ten rawa ga shi song ne na ha le ba ga ta sem phangbo re 가르세나 맞소 다 남지 그네 금난 직된데네 바로 돈 루르 거래 판 루이나 뭐직 되디 땅 알아서 지 치우대야 투토다래 만보즈 토도래 레다나 릉기 짓데라 야포즈듬 저메네나 다 할레바가다래 베껴보래
Human life is very fragile and subject to impermanence of death. At the most nowadays, people may live for 100 years, but not everybody does that. People die early, younger, in their 50s, in their 60s, in their 70s. So they have to live this world and this life and go beyond. But now, what really benefits when you have to go beyond this life is the practice of Dharma. Once you die or leave this world, you leave behind everybody. You have to leave behind your teacher teaching. But if you have practice, and that is what you carry. If you have not practiced and have really met with many teachers and Dhamma, but it is a waste, there's nothing you can carry beyond. So the stream of your mind, your consciousness, that which transfers, carries the impact of the practice that you have, not the impression that you have collected. So to change the stream of your consciousness into benefit is the Dharma.
Ta tangsang zamolanga tane ta sacha suso lekang suso na ina tane ta gum gyapki te pe karchen botsagore khabarda yang ta samtung gumba tab sangtung gumba go tani gomje go nandonde parcheya da ngachu to bojin nangtang ga nana yo pate chirtawa jere darung yang tangsang go sacha susona gomjambe ndi nandonde ngachu bojin nangtang go tab sangtung go chashi zre ngachu ne choba so yinna yang tele zap tele yachewa tele xaru mombo jigda to gontang yore yinna yang 지 mombo jik tela to gumja mado ti jimsang go teni rangi je lakpena dochak chene nanda jerdan chene nanda ta te tar jerdan rankar ma cheng de ki jimsan chire zena nga chu chu de gumma ta bare karte chu de yin rambo ar de gum thamna teni ngung lama kuma lama tamba khung namba gar nam tar jandana teni thomar ji ta nam to rankha wa ta dochak rankar wa jerdan rankar wa mombo jikena ya 다 이런거 와도 때문에 금 잡는 것도 없거니 남지 거네ከም나 때문에 때지 뇽모와 때 소양나 지 참마다나 다 잠했던 로주 니바 쳐버지 요거래 다 때인데 당선 당아 좀 머리가 잠바다는 니모 소였나 때문에 상등 거야가 언니급 거 남독대 소마랑 거는 용 샘지 데모 기보용케다 배 망보즈도 그 답상던 거는 또 거요래 레다 나츠 텔레장 학바가 다 보게 나도나 망어 몸보즈 라마 고마나 바 송요라 근데 좀 운이 자네 거도 마츠다리 곰자고인데 가르테 곰마게 랑커 카야 뭐야와가 다 된다 데 마체 동저스 존나 할레바가 더 방보래
These days the practice of meditation such as developing concentration also called mindfulness, are very popular here in the West, and many institutions are teaching and promoting. And it is just simply a way of being, temporarily free from distractions that are predominantly through afflictions. And these all instructions on meditation, such as concentration, are part of the main teachings that are in the Tibetan Buddhist lineage and tradition. But within the Tibetan Buddhist lineage that has been for centuries practiced and carried away and taught by great masters, carry within it much more profound benefit than just simple relaxation through concentration. There are great depth, so deep and so vast and profound benefits that are there through these practices, which one can learn and study and apply them. Now, the main thing about the practice of meditation is not just for relaxation, but it is to cut the root of afflictions such as intense desire and anger and hatred that creates all these kind of afflictions. So through the instructions and teachings that you get from great teachers and masters of our past, centuries, who have preserved and taught, and they are still applicable, and then one will realize that the practice of meditation is much more than relaxation. It can really bring a clear cutting of all these afflictions, such as disturbing thoughts and desires and all the ignorances. So paying attention to these instructions and practicing can be very important. If one dies without having applied these practices, and what a loss it is. Because generally, if we are not aware of these profound methods, we are simply carried away by many forms of distractions. And through distractions, we really spend our time, and it's from a dharmic point of view, it's a waste of life.
Tatini Zodo Karesirna the number 2 the Semertawagum the Garchembore Karesina the Matsu Musdan say in Nayang Semertawa the young Le Laborea Namandi America the Chobush Jambush Yerva the Kashikabar Surtunki Koran, the Kashikabar da Linki Gerderoa. The Koran in Jana, then the Koran Chuba, that Chuba Matun Bobaga Chuba Tendra in Samara, in Naya Chula Tankis in Sare. That Koran Gasena Kulam low some to soak some round, then the low Judene, Nanchulam Charis. Then the low some to soak some laco, Chunyam some long. That Jima Dare. 다 시란디 콜라 작가 만들었어. 다 니마레레 전도 다 대랑데 체가 타마레 대랑데 다 샤와 탐치근 중마레 삼네 그 연던 거는 체마도가 없는 띠스톱고 다 지군 시란디 대라가 작가 만들었어. 지마 다 간성거 나 탭내는데 그런 거 다른 남들은 된다세요래. 다 때나 지그 총총인디 그 가초 다 보바가 지 추바촌한다더니 지 상기바가 출라된 찬는 말에 있나요? 다지 머르가 잠바가 있나 자가 여커 잠바가 없는데 소가 타바 진보가 추운데 냠슬로나 오늘 장내가 미기다 깨래 미기다 깨나 더니 지 마촌 체카 낙축을 등어리나 다 매지 다 대당 잡아장거 다 마촌 첸더양 배 로통통저와 다 롭집착가래다 yap착다 대야르마르래 야야르마래 더니 지 처럼 몸보네 몸보고 빠르더나 다 레짐제젠데 게도 플로아메 바래 다다 추여보즈도 접소나 더니 지다 처럼 심ar 남세요나 주 대장 기빠 대기 부슴 소바단데 가티 쳔데 就他没给我个叫么子的来呢，他我呢长那个人给生了点大个不吃俺把子都讲呢，等你就他是蒙他没吧。等你他点着是的，等你俺送个的红苗家单了，等你大就对了，没吃就人看还讲钱不的，等你那俺做累金针的，也话是中间的，累金针自己的改的怎呢？那俺做个如果米也难着，马上把个咱不能个生存适当适应呢，得了个送呢，他可能啦，我呢长那个可能个菜地当啦，他吃个吃不有啥，别那俺做。Jarku ka zatam zina ta mutso shi sona te chamka chapa yore. Reda ko gate shi masona te la chamka chapa yo mara. Reda le jimre zigi ten mara. Shina ra ma shina ra gang tariang ta ngapshi me per na ranga liga tande. To nibar janga yana me yona zikam le jimre zigore. Te na tsuji jindanga tsemer toga yabo gomji dana. Tene ji le jimre yaho z ta ji gomji le jimre te la ta landor yabo chene na ta tanga su nangchu tari zo ta nyandon zer ko nan jaga. Tene ji ta gom nyamlen ga yana zo cheji zine na te hale bakar chimbore.
Remembering the impermanence of death is very important. Constantly being aware of it. That's part of the essential Dharma teachings. As you may have known, this one who founded this Apple products and TV or computer, or Steve Jobs, he had been somehow familiar with the Buddhist philosophy and approach from early age, from the age of 17, like that. And somehow this principle and the philosophy of it and some aspect of the practice has been strongly influencing him. It is said that having reflected on these things and understood the meaning of impermanence, he somehow managed to take every day as one day after another, in the moment. And apparently, he claimed that he was not really fearful of the approaching death. Somehow, he managed to experience some sort of a peace, and that is really good. He may not be particularly practicing Buddhism in the Tibetan tradition or having received instruction. Somehow, the Mahayana Buddhist approach and philosophy had a great impact on him. So those of us, or those of people who are now studying Buddhism and having received teachings and reflected and meditated, it is really important to remember oneself again and again the impermanence of life. We all are subjected to death, no matter how healthy it may be, but maximum life is, as one said, 100 years old, but we die before that too. So now when one is approaching the death or going through the practice, now it's not only the reflection on the impermanence and death, but the cause and effect, the karma. The cause and effect of the karma is something that one should truly understand and apply it very sincerely and observe it very thoroughly. In one way, it may look like the karma and cause are not different from the law, but in truth, it is very different. The law, if you have, in this life, you may have to bear the consequences of having broken the law, and receive the punishment or reward accordingly. But the karma, the cause and effect, is much more subtle. It goes from life after life, life after life. And you cannot somehow avoid the consequences of what caused the action, and the result. So, reflecting and understanding and observing thoroughly the importance of the cause and effect of the karma is very essential as well.
Also, the number two, 그 다 마음만나 라랑 소송원이 다 추바야 보슨 로지데 배 가르침 본도도 체레제나 단산지 다 시험 봐 뭐요래 근데 다 심지가 zon케야 뭐요래 아가바통 케야 뭐요래 조도 납초고 다 따와데 때 가바통 저 조ren도 맞소 샤쇼고 따와데 조데 야라 즈바 그 가접지라 가바다 즈바요니는 그 샤쇼고 때 참말아지 다바다는 딱나 조이 근데 납쇼고 참말아더니 가바통 저 조조 때레다 얘네야 오늘 전에 셔대용나 때네 샤쇼다 납쇼고 강 얘나 추가 내링 좋겠는데 배 잠볼로나 고모래 나초라는 거니 너 상로다나 다 예츠보요래 teni korang so gaba gare tongna ya teni jing gare gaba de ji ta don to lan roa ya nyonshi yore da yin ya ta tari zen de ji ngoni tane shadi chirona ta nga chu tari chu nang don de ji gaba tong go ya ma da gaba tong na gaba den ro ya yo ma re ta de yin ba de zo marang zo bo ba go ma jia yin na ga zha ba yin na ga choma go dang bo chu de ya bo zu shi go lo teni chuya bozuda 시디데 teni chuya nangdonde 당럽고 teni 찬릭다나 다 릭박사란데 촐라 다 여바즈도 저시고 데 여보즈도 저시네 teni 다 몽보시 마시만도 다 라랑 소송원이야나 다 냠린 여보즈 최나 멋진데 통통려 다 멋진 통통데 teni 냠린 여보시나 다 멋체그 냠보데 데레 근도 치레제나 다 제랑 존다나 요니 보바 몽보지 그때니 지금 청아종 콜로종 배야본데 오늘 전에 가성한데 게시가 추석고 나나였나 근데 보바서 또 몽보가 또다 청아종는 또 청아대 그런 좀 젊은도가 사쳤다 또 사천 또 제거 잠바가 롱바레다 옛날에 맞소가 장나 요비 답배다는 냥제다는 대조 돌고요 삼마레 되니지 단 넉쇼고만 몽보 지게나 가성대랑 되니지 추운데 냠래야 보치다나 때 그런 좀 셈나 니시야 보치는데 때 조 곰겨 거래 그때 곰마점나 랑커가 당상다나 tene teji klotra chimbo girgan sogo nim sameda pechape mombo taganda yena koranso gumyo mara koranso gummedi tene ji nyamling gor ge chig da teso lakhsha ba mombo ta tene koranso dilla ma chi de tela ji lokta da kornde mombo lab kon da na ta teso yena ji namba kakare koranso jimji ger namba ge tene nga so nyamlela 다 스타트시에나 다 그런 소양 시탑고요 말에 알아서 줄라야 반바 요거 말에 그런 딸이야 땅아주 근데 추석을 로마소에나 야 남바 카카레 되니 참아가 냥내 양보 취근도 참아가 추 난돈데 양보 달에 시근도 고 때 가르침 버린다 되나 다 남바조 가르세데 지 추데라 로종 시기다는 냥내 시기 다조 또 돈다 니나 여보 너근들에 디타다 또 다 존지 좀로 더니 제도들
on the profound nature of the Dharma practice and the benefit, which is the training the mind, there are approaches through many different ways. Scholars and critical thinkers from the West view it with kind of a critical approach, but those who are practicing may approach it with aspiration. But whether you are approaching from a critical approach or through the pure aspiration, but speaking to those of us who are now wishing to practice the Dharma for its true benefit, it is important, as has been spoken now, having sufficient understanding and knowledge through studying and receiving teaching and reflecting, and eventually through meditation. And through the practice of meditation, only one can thoroughly accumulate the benefit of it. As again, which encountered many critical thinkers and scholars who like to know more about the Dharma and the tradition and the practices. And as mentioned before, those scholars, having studied a little bit through books and reflected on it in some way, has more critical thinking or question rather than a faith and belief in it. And to such an extent, some of them have misconception and the misinterpretation of these profound, inner development practices that are in the Dharma. So, through reflecting and meditating and practicing, what one should try to really get is the certainty. When you reflect thoroughly and meditate, then you really become certain and convinced on the truth and the important nature of the teaching. Once you are thoroughly convinced, not just by influence, by convinced, and then one will really have the real approach. So now the final advice is Rinpoche himself is very impressed by his meeting all the Tibetans here and non-Tibetans, culturally non-Tibetan, meeting in the Dharma centers, which is very different from the academic institution or other different institution. But he is getting really impressed by the people observing people and seeing people with the mala in their hand or prayer wheels in their hand, and really becoming comfortable with that and reciting mantras. These are, from the cultural point of view, they are very important and signifies familiarity and being accustomed to the practice. But the most important thing is reflecting, studying, meditating, and becoming thoroughly certain and convinced of the truth in the Dharma. So pay attention to this.
다 로정 측근 연마가 더 롱 더네 실동 공연대 로정 측근 연마 더 많이 봐다 가지고 쇼고 더네 로정 그런데 가래다 다 야나가 있게라 저네요 다 당상이나 네 람초 런천 청아 신나 람초 런천 청아데 더네 양 당상 야나가 있게까나 더네 여름 본도 다 옛날에 지만 가랑가 말아 지금 롭스쉐드 거나테네 양 지금 랑기 지금 저나 더답데보다 테네 랑기 양다 지금 니추인데라 박착까지를 전에나 테네 추페 만라와가 더 추잡모 추션럽전 테네 추 랑기 질라야 다림저 고지 된라가 다리 추 레근도 테네나 다 당성아 데 시저란 로저라테네 체 남바가 추더니 다 람초 런전 총하다더니 말을 저저라 더니 로요 대난 오늘 저 당어서 라룬 가르니 나다 좀 타리메잖아 카장스 많이 바고 동거던 거 더니 남바 솔라다리가 지 로종식이 오고 모바 된다요래 더니 지마다링이 공고시하나 타워 나초다리 더니 보바가 지좀타 소소응원이나 당상가 지딱 로종치기 대야나 배나 nga kwaji paina kwaji pi chukuna nyamslenge de mare dene che tarong de lama jamta jamba ga de pecha de solo lojongshi pecha de solo tare ngone ga dene stakrishi ta deyna tare chi nga su tung mutone dene lojong chegi wonde tare karchemore dene nga su dana dene bobaina ra dene jamba ga de maruk soina gendang ga de lojong chegena 때 할레바가 그 가르침보레샤.
The approach of the Dharma practices in different traditions such as Kagyu or Nyingma, there are many different ways. In the Kagyu tradition, there are like a Langzhou Rinchen Trengma, so one of the teachings from the Gamboba, the Supreme Path, and then all these mind trainings, the 8-point mind trainings, which are general. So Rinpoche himself has been, referring these teachings and using them to teach or understand and reflect And now the point here is those who are studying Dharma and understanding, learning, wishing to understand, it is not the sectarian approach of this school and this tradition. One has to be open-minded to learn and study from all different faith and path or traditions. And they have different unique methods which are all very beneficial. So, and all of them are very profound and has a lot of benefit and blessings in them, and it can change your habitual tendencies and also like that. And the main thing is always to really purify the mind stream into pure aspect rather than be, like submerged in the afflicted state of mind. That is what Rinpoche wanted to be inspired and motivated to learn from all the different traditions and teachers, not only being stuck to one's own particular ways.
Sonam dai tamche veba domna nibe jana panche jan kirka nanchi ralon choba shibum solen roa